Welcome to Azure Blockchain Desperados. I'm Julia Nathan, a cloud solution architect at Microsoft.
And I'm Bob Jacobs. I'm also a cloud solution architect at Microsoft. Today, actually, we're going to be kicking off a video series on decentralized identity. We did a previous video maybe about a month ago, just covering what decentralized ID was and why I'm so interested in the topic. So we thought it warranted kicking off a video series specifically on decentralized ID. And as part of that, we wanted to cover in the series an overview of what decentralized identity is, as well as the developing ecosystem that is going to be used to support the development of the protocols and the web resources and the APIs that can be used to create decentralized identity systems. But today, as part of the first video in the series, we're going to be focused on the decentralized identity overview, a key sample that basically illustrates why it's important and some of the scenarios that it will enable, and the key problems that it's trying to solve. So not to put you on the spot, Julia, but why don't you just give us an overview of what are some of the key problems that decentralized ID is trying to solve?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. So decentralized ID, really the promise of it is that you as the owner of your own ID get to control how it gets used, what data gets shared, and that is all going to be something that you're able to do. The comparison is that in our current scenario, a lot of those things that we use to establish our ID, and these could be things like our driver's licenses, our Facebook login, our Google accounts, right? All of these things are components of identity, but we don't control any of them. My license is owned by the DMV, who gets to decide where that information gets shared or whether they get to issue another ID or what I need to give to them. The Facebook and Google logins are controlled by other people, and we don't get to control how that data gets used or what analytics get run on it. So with decentralized ID, again, the idea is that you would be in control of your ID, and you would get to decide how and where that data gets shared. So not only is that of interest to all of us, but it's especially relevant to displaced populations who don't always have what they need to sometimes acquire these identity documents. So this is a pretty good concept that we should, again, all be familiar with, and it's very relevant.
Yeah, so I love that you're bringing up the displaced populations, because the way I think about decentralized ID and what appeals to me is it solves really big problems, and it actually targets societal issues, and it enables new opportunities to make things better for everybody. So in order to do that, you basically have to have quite a bit of collaboration to make these types of scenarios work. So I wanted to make everybody aware that there is a foundation involved, the Decentralized Identity Foundation, that has quite a number of partners and big companies and a lot of backing behind it to help evolve this ecosystem. There's also collaboration with the W3C to focus on the specs that are needed for the web resources and protocols that are involved. So I wanted to make sure people have the knowledge of knowing where to go, since we're limited in time for this video, so that they can find information on their own. So really briefly, I just wanted to point you to three sites that are going to be valuable for you. So if I fire up my browser, the first one that I want to point you to is Identity Foundation, which is the Decentralized ID Foundation, which is going to basically cover who are some of the key partners and what their involvement is to build out this ecosystem. Second, if you hit a link that we'll provide in this video, there's going to be the W3C working group, which is going to cover the specifications for a number of the resources that we're going to be covering in our particular scenario. You'll be able to follow how this is evolving. But I think the most important one that I would point people to is, so Microsoft, we have a splash page that is covering decentralized ID, so it has a nice intro video. But if you scroll to the bottom, you're going to see a white paper. And this white paper is about, I think it's like 23 pages, that is going to cover the scenario that we're going to be talking about today in depth, as well as some of the information that's needed to tie everything together. So speaking of that particular scenario, I don't know, Julia, if you wanted to sort of walk us through what this actually is and why it would be helpful for us. So,
you bet I do, Bob.
yeah, what a go-getter.
So the sample scenario we're covering today is something I think a lot of us can relate to. In this example, we have our user Alice, and she has graduated from a university. They've issued her a diploma, and she would like to use this for other use cases, such as applying for a job, or maybe she wants to join a professional network and show them that she's indeed graduated from this university. So in a current day example, I might have to do something funny like take a picture of my diploma and send it in, or whoever it is who wants to know that I've got this diploma, they would probably have to engage in another process where they actually reach out to the university, go through that whole department trying to find somebody who can validate that record. And hopefully nothing's happened over at the university end of things, like a flood where my data has been contaminated. And that's a scenario where I have a lot of control. But in a DID universe, I have all of the control. So let's see what happens. So looking at the scenario, we can see that the university in the lower right-hand corner has issued a DID signed diploma. Now, what does that mean? So the DID is a globally unique identifier that's been signed by the private key of the university. This DID actually lives on a decentralized ledger or blockchain. Now, that diploma is going to be provided by the university. And here in this diagram, you can see that it gets sent to a user agent. That user agent is something that's actually owned by Alice, and it might be stored on her own personal computing device. One of the tenets of decentralized ID that Microsoft believes in is that it should seamlessly integrate with your life. So this user agent, it's really just an application that's supposed to make it easier for you to, as a user, use your DID, access your data, decide how it gets controlled. It provides a layer of abstraction to assist in that kind of use. So that user agent at some point is going to interact with these other components that you can see around the user. One of those things is the identity hub. Now, an identity hub is something that we don't store on a blockchain. A user would actually decide where it might live. It might live, again, on their own personal computing device. It might live as a cloud service offered by a third party over there. But all the data inside it is going to be encrypted at rest, and you're going to use that to keep your information that is stored, that is signed by third parties. So in our example, that DID signed diploma from the university might actually live in that identity hub. And you can see that in step number 2, storing the diploma in the user's personal data store. Now, say again that Alice wanted to use that diploma to perhaps apply for a job. You can see where she might, as step 3, present that signed diploma, and then whoever receives that diploma can all by themselves independently verify that this diploma is valid. And they would do that by using the university's public key to go ahead and verify that that has been, that is an accurate and valid thing that Alice has presented. And so in this scenario, you can see all of these components working together to actually allow Alice, the user, control how that data gets shared. And the best part about it all is that it's done independently of the university. What do you think, Bob?
That's I think it's fantastic. I mean, I love this model. One, because it puts your identity in control of you, or I should say, puts you in control of your identity. Second, the actual data that's tied or anchored to that decentralized identity, since it lives in an identity hub and off chain, it's not in an immutable store. So I'm able to take that data with me in like PKI scenarios and things like that. I still have ownership of that data, and I can move it around if I want to change cloud vendors or something like that. I could absolutely do that. With that being said, my ID and my public key is going to be penned and immutable, because who I am as a person just basically does not change over time.
Yeah,
And
it's a
it
good use
opens
of the
up quite a
blockchain.
number of scenarios. Yeah, it really
Yeah.
is, really is. So
Okay,
yeah, I
so
mean, that's
Bob,
a great scenario.
what do you hope that people have really learned from this?
Pretty simple. Just from this video, this is the first in a series. So really what I'm hoping is that they just have a firm understanding of the overview of what decentralized identity is and where to look to find more information. That's pretty much it.
Wonderful. All right, then, everyone. Thank you. We're so glad you could join us for hopefully yet another in several videos on DID. Thank you so much.
And thank you very much.